How's it going today, guys? CW After Hours here. In today's video, we'll be going over, is it worth building an older bike? I'm going to be basing off of my bike, of course. It's been a year since I had this thing rebuilt, and the answer might surprise you. And I thought a lot about this. It's been a year since I've had this bike and stuff like that. Some of you all are new to the channel, so I want to kind of give you all a quick rundown on this bike. I bought it last year at the end of March, beginning of April. It's a 2006 Honda Crf250r dual pipe. Bought it off a guy in West Knox. Thought I was getting a good deal on it. Rode it for about a month, and then about a month into it, we were riding here at the farm, and the motor locked up. Absolutely locked up. I could not kick it whatsoever. Took the bike back up the shop, drained the oil. The oil looked like it had metallic flake in it, which is always a wonderful sign. If you know anything about motors, your oil is not supposed to look like it has metal flake in it. Found a guy that would rebuild this motor. Actually, he's a legend around here. If y'all race motocross or anything like that around here, you know about KG race engines. Absolutely phenomenal guy. I highly recommend him. He's not taking, I don't think, any more clients, but if you know who he is, I'm not going to say who he is, but if you know who he is, you know this motor is a pretty bad motor. But anyways, took it to him. Come to find out, someone rebuilt the bottom end, but never touched the top end. And when they sat the crank into the oil pump, there's a C-clamp, I think he said, or something like that, that you set in there with it. Well, it wasn't set right, and what it did, spun itself out, and causing no oil to go to the top end of the motor. And as you all know, these older Hondas have some top end issues, let alone with no oil flow, and completely seized the piston, broke the rod to the piston, causing the rod to come back down and come back up and smack on the piston, sending it sideways, chunking the whole cylinder wall up right in here, a bunch of stuff. So I basically had to do a full motor rebuild. The only thing salvageable in this motor was the transmission, thank God. But full motor, I did a hot rod bottom end. This is what he recommended. We were going to go back to OEM, but we did basically OEM plus. Everything's been done to this motor except for a big bore kit. So we did a hot rod bottom end and crank, new oil pump, new bearings, new stuff like that, 13 5-to-1 compression piston, if I remember that correctly, a bunch of top end work, head work with titanium valves and valve springs, new rockers, stage 1, which is basically like a little bit up than a stock cam, but stage 1 cam in the top end, starter mod on it, so this bike's way easier to start. A bunch of carburetor work, so it's a lot easier to start with bigger jets and stuff to compensate for the high compression piston. So it went from 12 9-to-1, if I remember the stock piston right, to 13 5-to-1. And we basically fixed all the issues from stock that these bikes would have had coming off of 06 assembly line. We're thinking this bike is pushing anywhere between 48 to 50 horsepower, where stock it was about 41, 42. So that has an increase in horsepower and increase in bottom end with this new, more high compression piston. Of course, Honda race plugs in it, stuff like that. Has to run 110 octane race gas. I could get by with just 93 or 100% regular gas, but for optimal combustion and stuff like that, 110 is all I run in this thing. It's expensive, but it's so worth it. This bike absolutely screams when riding it. It revs out to 14,000 RPMs. We clocked this bike with my trail sprockets on it about 80-85 flat out, which is pretty gnarly for a 250. Like I said, guys, it just absolutely flies. Am I done with this bike? No. I want to redo the plastics on it again, a bigger set of radiators, different water pump in it, and stuff like that. Do some other odds and ends to it, but right now, like I said, I just play with it. Use some new foot pegs, shifter, brake lever, new handlebar setup, stuff like that. So I had to also redo the clutches in it. The clutches, when we took it apart, were really good, but this new motor burnt those out within not even 5 hours of owning it. And I've got about 50 hours on this bike now in about a year. I ride as much as I can, but my life is so crazy busy sometimes I can't ride it. Rode it on trails, open fields, on the road legally, because the farm we ride has paved pathway, which is basically like a road. So I have rode this thing on the road. Tight trails, muddy, dry, you name it, I pretty much rode this bike. The only thing I don't do is I don't race. I don't race like motocross or anything. I do want to do a hair scramble someday, but that's to be in the future. So is it worth buying an older 4-stroke to rebuild? My answer, honestly, having carburetor still kind of sucks. It's a pain sometimes to start, not gonna lie. And with the new 4-strokes coming out with new technologies, they're so much more reliable. They fix most of the new Hondas have pretty much fixed most of the issues from these older generations. You've got electronic fuel injection. You've got mapping, different map modes you can do, which is awesome. This is a rider's bike. There is no fancy electronics on it to help you or anything like that. You have to learn how to ride a bike on this bike. I do not recommend this bike to a beginner rider. You need to start off on like a CRF 100, 125, the new 125 4-strokes, a 150, if you're a bigger guy, a 230 trail bike. Something a lot more tamed and mellow before you jump up on a race bike. I bought the bike for, I think it was $2,800, $3,000, somewhere around there. With everything in it, I'm at about $500 to $5,400 in this bike. Now granted, I've got a brand new motor in this bike. Freaking thing screams like a banshee and everything like that. I'm looking for pipes though for this bike. None of the manufacturers really make newer pipes for these years anymore. Maybe they'll start coming with it more out once COVID finally freaking goes away. I had to wait on this rebuild, guys, actually last year for 3 months because of COVID. None of the parts were in stock in the United States, and so we're having to ship them from overseas. And with COVID going on, it was a complete logistics nightmare, and it frustrated the absolute crap out of me and my builder. But he did, like I said, if you're watching this, man, you did an absolute fantastic job, and I can't thank you all enough. Thank you enough, man. I really, really appreciate it. This guy can literally take this motor apart and rebuild it pretty much with his eyes closed. Like, it's an older gentleman, freaking knows the ins and outs of these bikes like the back of his hand. So honestly, my recommendation, no, if you had the money, buy a brand new one. Now, that being said, if you can get a good deal on one of these bikes and you know where it's come from, it looks like it has been rode hard, it looks like it has been trashed. Now, when buying a used bike, guys, you really never know what you're going to get. It sucks. There's a lot of dishonest people out there like that. I bought off of this bike. I should have saw the warning signs. I was too excited because I hadn't had a bike in like 3 years. I should have saw the warning signs, but I didn't. Turns out that. But it also was a blessing in disguise. Like I said, I got pretty much a full build spec race motor that you would see on a professional amateur motocross track out of this, and I can't be any more thankful for that. Like I said, guys, is it a little bit overkill for what I use it for trails? Yeah, maybe, but I never get tired of this bike. This bike is perfect size for me. I'm 135 pounds. This bike is the perfect size for me. It's got plenty of power. It still scares me sometimes how much power this bike has, but I absolutely love it. I don't feel the need to jump up to a KTM 350 or a 450 or anything of that nature. This bike is the perfect size for me, and I absolutely love it. Make sure if you buy this, guys, you get an owner's manual. I got mine for free online. It gives you all the torque specs. Most of the parts on these bikes are aluminum, and you should not over torque this stuff. It's very simple to really work on these bikes except for rebuilding the whole entire motor. So you all shouldn't have a problem with that. But like I said, my recommendation is to not buy one used if you can't help it. Now, I know with COVID, new bikes are in hard supply. Once one comes in a dealership, it seems like it's going straight out. They have a waiting list. But if you can wait or find a really good deal on one of these that you know what you're looking at, I'd go for it. Like I just actually, guys, 2 weeks ago, I went and looked at a Honda Crf250r 2-stroke, an early 2000s model that I actually walked away from because it was a Facebook Marketplace special. Pictures were way good than what it really was, and I walked away because it was not worth the money, and the guy wouldn't come down in price. I had to probably put another $2,000 in the bike to make it to where it would be really, really good. But other than that, guys, this is a shorter video, but I know a lot of you have been asking me about this, and I highly recommend getting a newer bike if you can. If you don't want to and you want the older styling and stuff like that, whatever reason, go for it, but understand you might have to sink some money into it, or worst case scenario, a whole brand new motor in this bike. Now, that being said, whenever I get the money, I have been mulling over my head buying another one of these bikes and then giving the motor to my motor build guy, and he's got a stroker kit in his 250. He's got an 08, so 2 years newer than this one, but basically the same bike. An 08 version of this bike with the stroker kit, stroker crank, whole 9 yards, making north of 70 plus horsepower, right around there, out of a 250 4-stroke. My third gear is the top end of his second gear. That's how bad that bike he's got. It's unfreaking real. Like I said, the guy is a master when it comes to these motors. And the sky's the limit on these motors, is how much you're willing to spend. But make sure you do your maintenance, guys. One big recommendation I recommend for you race bike guys, if you just got a race bike like this, is change your oil not by hours, but by color. I change my oil. He told me to change my oil every time it turns coffee brown, or the bike has sat for more than a month and a half to 2 months without running. So that oil doesn't break down and cause more issues. Like, these are very high tolerance, high strung race motors. You gotta treat them like that. If you wanna play, you gotta spend the money maintaining it. Oil filters, air filters. Like, don't cheap out on the easy stuff, guys. You don't wanna spend $4 on a new filter, or $25 on a new air filter, or buy the pro grade Honda synthetic oil because the brand name whatever is $3 cheaper. Make sure you spend the money on high quality stuff, guys. It'll save you from spending thousands of dollars on a new motor. Trust me on that. But like I said, it wasn't my fault initially, but still, protect your investment. So that being said, guys, I hope this video was helpful. I know it wasn't with me riding it and stuff. I'm trying to work on my audio setup because the last time I rode in the last dirt bike talk, it didn't sound very good, so I'm working on my audio setup. That being said, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you like the video, leave a like. New channel, please subscribe. Join the TW After Hours family. We're constantly growing and changing and trying new and better things. I hope you all have a great day. Never give up on your dreams, and always, always do what you love.